It's one thing to be scared walking home at night, but there's something different about being scared at school, when the halls you know by heart start to feel wrong. Tonight, I've got 3 true stories sent in by people who swear what they experienced still haunts them to this day. All of them happened in schools, the one place you'd think would feel safe. So turn off the lights, plug in your headphones, and get ready for 3 real school horror stories. Story 1. The Janitor's Night Shift. Our first story comes from a janitor who worked nights at a small-town high school built in the 1950s. He had been there for years. He knew every hallway, every locker, every sound, or so he thought. He always clocked in at 10 p.m. when the halls were empty, and the only sound was the distant hum of the heating system. But one late November night, a week before Thanksgiving break, something felt different. He was walking toward the gym when he heard it, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. He froze. The sound was familiar, yes. Basketball season was in full swing, but it was well past midnight, and the school was locked tight. Against his better judgment, he pushed open the heavy double doors to the gym. Darkness swallowed the space, except for one flickering fluorescent near the far corner. He flipped the switch. The lights didn't fully turn on, only a faint flicker, enough to make the shadows in the bleachers look like they were crawling toward him. Then he saw it. A basketball rolled across the floor, coming to rest against his foot. His heart thumped. He bent down to pick it up, and then he heard the whistle. Sharp, sudden, echoing from the locker room. He called out, his voice trembling slightly. Silence. Then another whistle, shorter this time, almost like a sigh. His instincts screamed at him to leave, but something, a strange pull he couldn't explain, made him walk toward the locker rooms. The air was humid, heavy, like someone had just stepped out of the showers. The mirrors above the sinks were fogged, but the tiles were dry. And then he noticed a locker, slightly open, creaking back and forth as if breathing. He approached it, his mop in hand. Inside, an old varsity jacket lay folded, faded from decades past. A name was stitched across the chest. Coach Miller. He knew that name. Coach Miller had collapsed and died in that very gym during practice 20 years earlier. The janitor didn't argue with what he was feeling. He left the mop, turned off the lights, and walked straight to his truck. That night, he resigned from all overnight shifts. Months later, the new janitor reported the same thing. A single flickering light in the gym, and a whistle cutting through the dead silence around midnight. Whatever it wasn't gone. Story 2, The Substitute's Notebook. Our next story comes from a substitute teacher filling in at a rural middle school. She had been subbing for years, always carrying the same worn leather bag and a small thermos of coffee. She prided herself on being calm, organized, prepared for anything. One morning, she was covering an 8th grade English class. Everything seemed normal until she reached into a desk drawer. She found an old spiral notebook. On the cover, in faded letters, Room 213 Journal. Assuming it was a student project, she flipped it open. The first entries were dated 2 years prior. Students had written about strange occurrences, cold drafts that appeared from nowhere, the projector turning on by itself, whispers coming from the supply closet. At first, she smiled. Creative students. A harmless prank, but the last few pages were different. The handwriting was uneven, rushed. One line, chilling in its simplicity, made her pause. She's standing behind the bookshelf again, Don't look at her face. No signature, no explanation. Her curiosity turned into unease. At lunch, she showed the notebook to another teacher. The color drained from that teacher's face. Apparently, the previous instructor had started the notebook as a Halloween joke, but stopped after an incident in detention. One student had fainted, claiming they saw a tall figure near the bookshelf, though no one else did. After school, the substitute gathered her things, shaking off the growing dread. But when she looked back, the notebook wasn't where she left it. It sat on her desk, open to a blank page. Written in fresh blue ink were 4 words. Don't forget attendance sheet. She hadn't touched a blue pen all day. Shivering, she left the classroom, turned off the lights, and locked the door. That night, the notebook disappeared completely, leaving only questions she would never have answered. Story 3. The security camera. Our final story comes from a security guard working nights at a private high school. He spent hours monitoring grainy camera feeds, watching empty hallways that should have been quiet. Most nights, nothing happened. But one Friday in March, at 3 a.m., the camera covering the second-floor hallway began to glitch. Static burst across the screen. When it cleared, a figure stood at the far end of the hall. At first, he thought it was a reflection. The figure didn't move. Zooming in, it looked like a student in uniform, arms at their sides, facing the wall. He called over the walkie. Silence. Switching to a camera at the other end, the hall was empty. The figure had vanished. He rewound the footage, frame by frame. The person didn't walk away. They simply disappeared between frames. Static again. Then, nothing. He went to check the hallway himself. The lights were dimmed for renovations. At the end of the corridor, near the lockers, he found a small silver bracelet, its clasp broken. He turned it into lost and found, uneasy but trying to stay rational. Returning to the monitors, the same camera flickered again. This time, the figure was closer, head turned toward the lens. The feed glitched before he could capture it. The next morning, the principal confirmed that section of the hallway had been closed for renovations. No students should have been there. The storage drive? Blank. Every recording from that night erased. A week later, he found a plain envelope in his locker. Inside, the silver bracelet and a note in neat handwriting. Thanks for finding me. He handed in his badge that day. He never returned. Each of these stories comes from people who swore they were telling the truth. Schools are meant to be orderly. Bells, timetables, bright fluorescent lights. But when the lights go out and the hallways fall silent, even the most familiar places can feel waiting. So if you ever find yourself alone in a classroom after dark and you hear a whistle, a whisper, or see a camera light blink on by itself, remember this. Some lessons aren't taught in textbooks, and some you don't want to learn twice.